Welcome to UCHL's 4 Days Media Luncheon. Our players are wide receiver Matt Williams, quarterback Bart Williams, and in the middle, head coach Matt Mitchell. Coach, if you can talk about the victory over Ferris and then move on to Truman State, who defeated number 20 Southwest Baptist last week.
Sure. Awesome atmosphere that we had on Saturday. I really appreciate all the support. I know our players feel the same way. Set a Lubber Stadium single-game record in terms of attendance. So great atmosphere, two really good teams going at it that are also rivals. I thought members of both squads, both the Ferris State guys, Grand Valley guys, competed extremely hard. It was a very physical game. It was a really clean game, and I think there's probably some people outside, thought maybe there'd be a little bit more animosity, but I thought there's a lot of respect for the players on the field. I thought the players played extremely hard. The Ferris guys, players, even when they got down, you could see that based on some of their experiences, there was no give up, no lack of fight. So very hard-fought contest. I think there was one personal foul. It was very a good game just in terms of the contest on the field and the way things were executed. So we got off to a great start. They hit a couple plays on that first drive, but we got down there in the red zone and helped them to a field goal attempt, which was huge. I think heading into that game, when you took a look at both squads, two areas that we thought we had favorable matchups were the turnovers and also the red zone. We've been pretty good in 2016 in the red zone, not settling for field goals and scoring touchdowns. And conversely, I think just based on the style of play and a little bit different personnel, they'd struggle a little bit in the red zone. I thought you saw that out there on Saturday night too. So it was really important for us to get that start. We held them to a field goal attempt. They missed the field goal, and then we went right down the field. Had a good set of openers. We were mixing up the run and the pass. Scored the touchdown. We got another stop. Came down the field and threw in a special play in which Marty threw the ball to Erston Smith that got us up 14-0. So really good start. I thought both sides of the ball, the staffs and the players, you could see we were prepared for the game, came out ready to play that game. So when you kind of break things down from an offensive, defensive, special teams perspective, a lot of credit to our defensive staff and our defensive players. We knew Reggie Bell was an electric player, but we weren't going to sit back and be conservative. We were going to attack. We were going to be extremely aggressive. When you play that caliber of player, you don't wait. You have to take the fight to them, and I thought we did a really good job of that in the first half. We mixed up a lot of looks. We were very aggressive. We gave up some plays. That's going to happen with good football players. A couple of guys made some catches. Obviously, Reggie Bell scrambled around, made life difficult, but we kept them off balance with our aggression on the defensive side of the ball. And to go that entire first half and only give up 6 points, I think was, again, a credit to our players and coaches working together. Second half on the defensive side of the ball, we were out there a lot, so our offense has to help out our defense a little bit. We were obviously out there a lot in the third quarter. You take that in combination with the fact that we had some injuries that started to pile up for us. Obviously, we did not have Garrett Punier heading into the game, who is a all-conference, all-American type safety, and then we lost Marquez Goldman pretty much really early in the third. We lost Jalen Harden. We had no Trey Walton from an earlier injury, and David Talley ended up going down too. So we're getting thin. We're getting thin on the back end of our defense, which obviously they attacked, and then we had to play a lot of snaps. But we kept fighting. The end of the game, we were out there. I think there was a 16-play drive. We never had any panic, never really fracturing in our defense, and kept playing. So Reggie Bell's a good player. He made some plays on us. We made more, and we talked about that in the locker room before the game, that they're going to win some of the battles. We got to win more battles and consequently win the war. I thought our defense stuck together. Battle was very physical. Offensively, we executed well in the first and part of the second. I feel like our execution was off towards the end of the second and most of the third quarter. With everything, we could have done a better job in terms of our passing game. That's not just our quarterback. Our quarterback is certainly involved in that. Bart's involved in that, but that's everybody. Our wide receivers, the protection, all 11. It's the unique thing about offense. You have to have all 11 individuals working together to get it done, and we just didn't quite convert enough when we needed to convert. But on the flip side of that, when things were looking really rough, after we gave up a score, they kicked off to us. We didn't get a very good return. The ball's on the 19. We come up with, probably the most critical drive of the entire season, in my opinion. We We had a big third down to Brandon Bean. Bart puts it right on him. Good protection, puts it on him. Came back, hit a slant to Hurston Smith on a run-pass option, and then great job by our coaches and players. We got into single width. We motioned Nick Dotson across, got a matchup on one of their safeties. And Bart had a little bit of pressure in his face, but threw the ball to Nick Dotson, and that was a huge score at that point in time. That drive by our offense was huge. It just took a lot of pressure off of our defense, and put us with a 2-score lead there late. Almost felt like sealed the game up. So. And then special teams, I thought we did a pretty good job on special teams. The one thing, I wish I could have back, I wish I could have called a little bit different punt protection scheme. I put our redshirt freshman Dan Matt in a not great position. We had just ripped a really big kickoff return to get to the 45, kind of had a sloppy offensive possession. If we could have punted the ball down and pinned him deep, that would have really helped us. We only had a 5-yard punt. That was and some of that's on me. I didn't help him out as much as I could have with the call that I made at that point in time. But other than that, our kickoff coverage was awesome. I thought we handled punts real well with Matt Williams. They have very tricky schemes they have on their punt. Our punt return team did a good job. And, we did rip the one return on kickoff return. And for the most part, we kept the ball out of the returner's hands just like the previous week against ODU. When you play good teams, every inch matters, everything matters. And then my last point, I thought we did a great job with our team discipline. We had some penalties in the ODU game. When you look at the penalties in this game, we had a couple compete penalties with our DBs with a pass interference and a holding call, but we really had no personal fouls at all in the contest. We had no pre-snap, post-snap stuff. Our offense didn't jump off sides. Our defense didn't jump off sides. We had one holding call on an offensive lineman, and we had a pass interference and defensive holding on our secondary, 3 total penalties for the day. That was a really big difference in the ball game too. I thought was the composure and the discipline that we showed with the things that drive me crazy, which are pre-snap, post-snap. So, good win. Gets us to 6-0. This win puts us in a good position again within the GLIAC in terms of the race. We have a really critical non-conference game coming up right now with Truman State. Great job by our administration getting this game. We were, scheduled to play Malone. Malone backed out of the GLIAC and left us an open slot for Week 7. Trying to fill a Week 7 game is very difficult, so we're glad to be able to sign a contract with Truman State. This is a team from the GLVC, which is in our region. We played Truman State in 2013, so they're making the return trip back up to Allendale. They're obviously having a great season. They lost their opener to Midwestern State. Midwestern State is currently undefeated. Leading the Lone Star Conference, had a big win over Commerce this weekend, and Midwestern State was the #1 seed in our region last year in 2015. So that was their only loss, and since then they've done a good job within the conference and put themselves at the top of the conference. Their defense is, their defense and their true freshman tailback are leading the way. I think they have a very aggressive defense that shows you a lot of looks, does a lot of different things, will put pressure on offensive staff, and then they recruited and have a true freshman tailback that's leading their team in rushing, and he's also doing a lot of things in the return game. I watched a lot of special teams tape yesterday. He's a kick returner, creating some problems there, and he's also, the third leading receiver with 17 receptions, and, obviously a good get by them, and is a good athlete. So, it's a big game for both programs. I mean, first of all, every game at Grand Valley is a big game. We don't take anyone lightly, and with our season, our expectations, this is another huge contest. This is as critical as last week's contest. People have a hard time probably believing that, but that's the case, and I know our players believe that. But, it's a big game for Truman State, too. They're coming out of GLVC and attempt to try to make the playoffs, and this is for strength of schedule, a lot of other reasons. If at the end of the season, this could be a really, really critical matchup, and it's important we have a great week of preparation and get back on the field. I'm glad we're at home, and I'm glad it's homecoming. And this 4:00 start, which we've shifted around for homecoming, be interesting to see our atmosphere and environment, and just welcome everybody to come back out. We only got 2 more opportunities that are guaranteed at home, and this is the second of those 2, with Findlay being the last.
Matt, if you and Bart could comment a little bit about some of the miscues you had in the passing game last week. I know you said earlier this year that you were going to move Bart up a little bit more, pistol than shotgun, and has that led to any problems with either protecting him or, as you look at tape and see what you've done this year, has it caused you any difficulties that didn't exist before?
No, I don't think pistol has anything to do with it. I mean, the depth that he's at was the same depth that he was at last year. The pistol gives us more downhill runs, which aided us greatly Saturday, getting Marty down there. So I think that's been a good compliment. I think there was a variety of factors on Saturday that led to Maybe why we weren't clicking from an execution standpoint as well as we possibly could. First of all, I don't discredit the competition. That's a tough defense. When you take a look at their defensive line, their defensive front, I think it's one of the best in the GLIAC. And I don't watch tape everybody nationally, but I have a hard time believing that when you talk about a front four and a box look, that you'd have a hard-pressed time finding a whole lot of teams, that are going to put a better product on the field. So the pressure impacts things, and just in terms of the pass rush and that stuff. And then some of the things they were doing out on the edge and some of the things they're doing from a perimeter standpoint, pressing their corners up. I give Tavier Thomas a lot of credit. I thought he played a really good game, pressing us up and being physical and trying to handle some of those things. The one interception we had, saw him jump into a pressure and we tried to throw a ball out to Matt, and it just, again, the timing was off. The timing was off based on the release. The timing was off based on Bart had somebody in his face and maybe had to throw it a little bit quicker and didn't know exactly where Matt was going to be. And those are the subtleties of football when you face good competition that have to get cleaned up at that spot. And, the previous week, that had been a good matchup for us. Matt had done a great job outside, and Bart, and we just the timing was a little bit off on a couple of those picks, on that particular matchup outside. And so we know it. We continue to address, and we'll continue to work on that. And at the end of the day, based on what they're doing, there was a lot of man coverage. There wasn't much zone, and so when you go against zone coverage, it's about spacing and timing. And we saw a little bit more press quarters, press man coverage, and at the end of the day, everybody's got to win. The offensive line's got to win. Bart's got to win with the throw. We got to win on the outside edge. And there was a couple times on Saturday we didn't win at the level or the expectation that we need. So those are good learning experiences. I know we have a veteran crew, but we can still continue to get better. And those things will keep us humble and keep us working. So I'll let Bart speak on a little bit too.
Like Coach Mitchell said, you covered a lot of it, but not to discount the defensive play out there on the corner, but just lack of execution a lot on my part. So, that's really all I got to say about those.
Coach, could you talk a little bit about this team's makeup? It appears from their numbers that they're maybe similar to Ferris in that people haven't been able to push the pile on them in the run game. They have given up some yardage, though, in the passing game. Is there an apt comparison there?
Well, I would think so. I think the similarities are from a statistical standpoint. They're very stingy against the run. And I will give our offensive line, tight ends, and our running backs credit. We were able to move the ball in the run game against Ferris way better in 16 than we were in previous years. And, credit to those guys. And I probably should have said in earlier comments. I think the difference, though, you're going to see, we anticipate we're going to see, Ferris is a big crew inside. Their two interior defensive linemen are big. Their defensive ends are big. They don't do a lot of movements. There weren't a lot of pre-snap movements. They brought some cover zero pressures. They did some pressures with their linebackers. For the most part, their defensive line is pretty static, Ferris's is. It's going to be a little bit more of a challenge here with Truman State because this is a little bit more athletic defensive line from the standpoint they know the strengths and weaknesses, it appears, of their personnel, and they put their kids in good positions. They put them in good positions by moving them a lot. There's a lot of chaotic activity at the line of scrimmage. So a different challenge, same statistical results, but a different challenge for offensive line. I don't feel like this is going to be a physical mismatch. This is going to be a mismatch that's more based on movement and scheme and a lot of things that we're going to have to handle up front that is going to present a challenge to us.
Could we have the players comment a little bit about the possibility or the need to come up with a big game the week after an emotional game like Ferris? This would normally be a week when you might think that things might not reach the same fevered pitch. How are you guys preparing for this game, which is against a team that looks like it might be as good as any team that you'd play in your own league this year?
I would say, got to learn a lot from even around the league because, when Ashland knocked off Ferris, they kind of had a hangover the next week. Obviously don't know what's going on in their building, but, we got to make sure that doesn't happen to us, and that starts with the players that are playing a lot, leading the young guys, and, everybody else especially on offense. We got to have a better game than we did on Saturday. So I think everybody on offense knows there's a lot to work on from the previous game, and we got to keep getting better as the season goes. And like Coach Mitchell said, every game's big around at Grand Valley, and just got to come up and play. And we can't have that hangover a week after broke the attendance record, high emotion game. We got to come up and have the same intensity next Saturday.
Yeah, I would agree with everything Bart just said. I mean, every game here is a big game. We have to have the same approach as we did the week before, no matter who we're playing. Obviously, there's not going to be as much hype for this game, and we need to create the energy ourselves as a team inside our locker room. And it's just like every other week. Got to ignore the noise and just whether the noise is high, whether there's no noise at all. You got to stick to the process and just come out ready to play.
Coach, you're going up against quarterback Jaden Barr, redshirt freshman. Just with this past week, he's kind of a mobile guy. What things defensively are applicable to this offense? I mean, obviously he doesn't have the mobility of Bell, but just what things did you guys do this past week, and will you try to do that going forward this week against Barr?
Yeah, well, I think with we take a look back at the tape with Reggie Bell. I think there's some lessons to be learned from our defense. First of all, we ran some inside pressures. We got to make sure that we contain those pressures, that we don't get a little bit too nosy inside, and we create those pockets and escape. I think there's times when we just rushed 4 that we were winning, but we didn't quite finish. We were getting back there, but we had a hard time getting him down and finishing. And then, on a couple plays specifically, Bo, I think some of our guys in our back end, our secondary, made assumptions that he was down or was going to go down because of some things. And, I wouldn't say we stopped playing, but we kind of lost some focus in those things. So that was a very unique game, just from a standpoint that typically when you play football on the defensive side of the ball, you're just so used to the ball snap, there's a flow of things, and then the play is over. There's a progression to a play, and the play is over. And, with our football team, that we go through fall practices and we go through preseason camp, that's usually the way the play feels. There's a progression in the field. We either sack him or anything, and no knock on it, but that style of quarterback that we played Saturday is not the style of quarterback that we recruit to Grand Valley, and we've had here, including our current starting quarterback. So we try to prepare our kids for that, but it's really tough to emulate that, him moving around. And that's everybody. That's D-line. We had some things where the guys scrambling around. The linebackers came out of coverage. We opened up some voids in the middle. We had some things where the guys scrambling around. We had secondary guys jumping some stuff and some things getting behind. I mean, the improvisation of Reggie Bell puts a lot of pressure on your defense, So, when you take a look at the quarterback we're facing, I would agree with you watching tape. I'm not sure he's to that level of an athlete. I'm not sure there's a lot of guys in Division II or that level of athlete that Reggie Bell was, but there's still lessons to be learned about plays that go off script. You have the play A and play B, the first part of the play, and then you have to defend that. And then when things start going off script, there's that second part. We could certainly be better defensively, coaches and players, when we transition to that next stage of that play, the second half of that play.
And then Matt and Bart, just talk about, the passing game, despite their struggles, you guys have that drive there in the third quarter. Obviously, you get it to Bean. Erskine Smith made some catches, and then obviously Nick Dodson's touchdown. Just speak to, the confidence that you have in your receivers, and then, Matt, just the depth of the group overall, especially heading into the meat of the conference season.
I think that was a big drive for the confidence of our offense as a whole. We struggled the whole second half, and, we got down to a pretty close game. I think we were only up by 5 at that point. And, when we needed it, we came through after struggling for a long time. And, a lot of that was in the passing game, which is good to see. But, we got to credit the coaches big time because that last drive we, used a lot of the plays previous to that drive to set up some things that worked out really well. And, the confidence of the wideouts, it's easy to throw to these guys. They're so versatile, every one of them. Dotson, he's mainly been an underneath guy, and then he ends up catching a long touchdown. And, Erskine, he's been primarily a over-the-top threat this season, and he came up with a couple grabs for, 8 yards, and then I think he caught one, and he advanced it to about 20. But, they're just doing a great job out there competing every snap, and, it's a pleasure having those guys out there on the outside.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun playing with these guys. When someone's down, someone else is going to pick them up no matter what happens. No matter who it is, we got, like Bart said, we have a lot of depth out there, a lot of versatility. one guy isn't just going to do it all. And it just makes it a lot of fun playing with them every day and getting better each week and just being in the spots we need to make plays. And, I mean, as you guys saw this past weekend, I mean, different guys were making plays when we needed it the most. Bean on a third down, Erston on a couple underneath throws that he advanced, as Bart said, and then Dotson with the big one. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun, and I mean, we have a lot of depth out there, and I can't wait to keep working, getting back to work with them, and just keep having fun.
And finally, Matt, you talked about the guys that were injured last week, but you got some people incorporated into the scheme on defense, like Belcher and Sonny, and you've got these other guys who are starting to make a little bit of a move, Hurley and Harden and Dunham. Can you talk about the players who may not yet be quite starters, but they're like the 1A type option for
Sure.
you?
I mean, we start in front of our defensive line. We have a very strong senior class at our defensive line. We talk Alton Voss, Sidney Omame, down at the ends out there, and then inside with Mark Rosenquist and DJ Hogan. DJ suffered an ankle injury the previous week at Ohio Dominican, and he didn't practice much all week, and I think only played 20 snaps. So Belcher took a majority of the snaps, and Keon has played, but he's kind of been our backup 3 technique that we've rotated in there. But I thought Keon played really good at the 3, especially against the run. Sonny has been in our program. He's also a senior and has always worked to kind of spell Mark inside there. And then Dylan Carroll has been playing, quite a bit too, to kind of help out with our depth at our end position. So, Belcher stepping up was huge on Saturday. We got James McBride got in there a little bit, had some guys get in. When Quez went down, obviously Deshaun had to get a lot more repetitions out at nickel. I thought he did a good job. He missed a couple tackles here and there, but did a good job there. And then, our safeties were under some duress on Saturday. I mean, you first have to give a lot of credit to Dante Carey, who I think played every defensive snap at both safety positions. We had to rotate him. Without Garrett, we've been starting, this particular game, Jalen Harden and Dante Carey. So we had no Garrett, and then Jalen went down. Another individual I like to mention is Grant Postma. Grant Postma has been doing an unbelievable job on special teams in the last couple of weeks. He has stepped in on the defensive side of the ball and done a really good job and really helped out our team quite a bit at that safety position. And then out at corner, we've lost Trey Walton for an extended period of time. I don't know. It's progressing the way we thought it was going to be, so he's out. So McKissick is playing well. Studdard has played in our program. And, Kalen Dunham, for a redshirt freshman to be thrown in that environment, that situation against that quarterback and those receivers, there were some mistakes that he made, but he still competed. And I think some of these previous experiences that we've been able to give him have really helped him in his progression. And the same thing with Jalen Harden. So you're taking a look at some redshirt freshmen playing in our secondary in some high-level football games. That's good for us in the short term because none of these injuries that I've talked about are going to be season-ending injuries. At some point in time, we'll get Garrett back. We'll get some of these guys back. It's just going to help us because of the depth. And it really helps me a lot on special teams because I have some of these guys that now have these game experiences that I can trust because they've played out there a lot.
It was talked about earlier with the, coming off a big victory. Talk a bit about your approach and what you'll talk to the guys this week about. Ferris is done. Now we're moving on to Truman State.
Well, I like to think that our message is very consistent within our building. I said that heading into the whole week that, this is, I get from an outside standpoint because of the institutions, the athletic departments, because of the recent history that there was going to be a lot of talk about the Ferris game, but we were going to still be focused on Grand Valley State. And I believe this, that if you overhype an opponent and you put too much into an opponent, you're going to set yourself up as a program to have letdowns because you send poor messages to your players about the importance of every single Saturday. So for us, it's not the highs and lows of the season. It's about the consistency, and it's about the consistency, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I don't like to alter our schedule much. We won't alter our schedule much this week, and we talked about the opponent, and I think we have the same mindset for everybody on our schedule. We respect everyone, but we don't fear anyone, and that respect comes from the work that we put in, and we're going to prepare for them the way we would prepare for anyone on our schedule. So, outside people take a look at your schedule and they highlight certain games on the schedule. That's human nature. I get that. We try to avoid that at all costs. We don't put up schedules in our locker room, red letter days, or have countdown clocks to specific games, things like that. I just think that's a disservice, and it's going to set you up to put you in a bad spot from a process standpoint.
You guys are creatures of habit. It's a 4 o'clock start this week. How will you go about changing your routine in terms of that one day?
That's a great question. Now, just kind of take a look at. I mean, we kind of have our schedule game time out. I think we'll just bump everything up. Simple as it sounds, just bump everything up probably 3 hours and approach it that way. And we'll talk about that a little bit, within our deal. But we've had a 2:30 start at Walsh. We had a noon start at ODU the previous couple weeks. So it'll be unique. I've been here 13 years. We've had some 1 o'clock starts and noon starts at the last regular season game, and also because of the playoffs. It's be the first 4 o'clock start. And I know we made a move here to try to have a little bit of a change up in terms of the homecoming and some festivities before and after. So it'll be unique. But hopefully I've got a crew that you can play it on a parking lot at 8 a.m. and this is what we do and this is how we are, and they'll line up and do it. And hopefully we've got that at that point and just kind of adjust things a little bit with our meals and our schedule and stuff. And I'm confident in our leadership within our team. I think we have great senior leadership. We have a good leadership team. I think they'll be the ones that'll steer that ship more than me.
Once again, it's a 4 o'clock start on Saturday against Truman State. That will conclude today's media luncheon. Thanks.